Welcome everybody! We're gonna do a cooking class. Well, I don't know if I want to call it a class, but I'm just gonna show you some cool things that I like to do and talk alongside of it too. Maybe we'll get a little action with all of the I know I tend to go on about things, but there's so much information to really get straight when you're trying to be healthy. And so this is Empowered Meals, and I'm Donna Meals, and that's who I am and what I do. So as many of you may know, I was a chef for about 25 years. I was a caterer. I've probably catered 400 weddings in my day, back in over a course of a long span of time. And yeah, I've prepared a lot of food in my day. I was one of those people that, you know, I didn't just tell people, you know, hey, I'll drop this, whatever. I was in there in the trenches with them. And that's, I guess, how you make sure that everybody's doing what they need to and keeps your quality high. So anyway, and if you do hear some pounding in the background, I got some jazz music going, trying to flush it out, but got the roofers are doing a little work. It's what happens, right? It's always something. So today, right now, as promised, I'm gonna do a vegetarian dish. This is, it's fresh Pommodoro Basilico sauce. And there's a lot of different ways to do this. This just happens to be my favorite. I might, you know, toss it up a little bit. I am gonna provide, I figured out how to get you guys a link for my Dropbox. I didn't even think of that. So I've got a lot of my recipes that are cataloged there. Unfortunately, my hard drive kind of took a dump and I lost a lot. So I'm gonna have to kind of get back to reorienting and putting some more on that Dropbox. I'm gonna have to actually cook them too. Because most of the time, I just do everything from out of my head from what I've done before. I see a recipe and I say, oh my gosh, you know, that looks good, and I try it, but then I'm always gonna fudge with it and do things the way I like to do it, or you know how I do. So I'm gonna share some things. I already cut up a lot of the Heirloom tomatoes. Look at those, they're beautiful. There's I'm a fan of Trader Joe's. They've got a lot of good go-to stuff, and they have always had this beautiful thing of 2 pounds of heirloom tomatoes, but I have actually got 3 pounds going here. I'm gonna double up the recipe, just so you know. And like I said, I'm not an avid recipe follower. I just I wing it. And the recipe blueprints that I was telling you about before, you know, I'm gonna get into a series probably with that, for anybody that's interested in that, just learning basics and stuff. So I guess if you went through that program per se, like I used to teach that. And in the yoga studio, I'd come and set up a cooking thing right there at my girlfriend's yoga studio, and all the patrons would be there and we'd have a ball. It was really cool because I would sit down and give everybody a recipe, right? Say, okay, here's your recipe. There's your homework. Come back next week. And they would come and bring their homework, and we'd try it. And that's why I don't like recipes, because 9 times out of 10, they're totally going to be different. Everybody's idea of whatever that's written on there is going to, everything is about your perspective and your interpretation. So I guess that's why I'm so loose with the recipe thing. So, but anyway, here we go. Here's my cutting board, and I'm gonna just start with, I have most of the tomatoes cut, but I'm gonna just start with the garlic. And I've already had some. I kind of cheat, and I bought some that were already, you know, pre-peeled. And I like to kind of just smash them, you know, with my knife. Some people have a garlic press. Mine happens to be in storage. I'm in kind of an in-between place right now, waiting for all of this stupid mask thing to go away. Whatever these mandates are, I'm just kind of waiting until I'm I'm thinking about relocating to somewhere else. I'm in Southern California right now. But anyway, so I smashed the garlic. You could use a garlic press too, which will automatically do that. But, you know, I'm just gonna give a rough chop on this garlic. And the recipe calls for about 3 heads. I have 8 here because I doubled it and I added in a little extra because I am a garlic fiend. It's actually really good for your digestion, good for that tract. So along with ginger and onion too. There are some certain specific properties in onion that are really good for you for that, you know, that whole system too. So anyway, see how I'm using my knife, and I just kind of use it as like a lever. And so I'm just kind of doing like a little medium chop, not getting too crazy. You can do fine. I mean, it's up to you. For me, I like to bite down and have a little tiny bit of that garlic. Goodness. Okay, so I'm gonna just put that in the pan. Oops. I always do the wrong one. I think that might be better. It might be easier for you guys to see if it's that way. All right, there we go. Okay, now I'm just doing this in a Dutch oven just because I got a lot of tomatoes and I don't want it to slurp out. You know, I cook with a fry pan a lot too. So I'm getting about a couple tablespoons of olive oil in there. Just gonna, and I always kind of keep like a ghetto rag. And I just can wash off right like that, and you know, got my little drying towel too. Okay, so we've got the garlic going there. In the meantime, I'm gonna cut up this onion. Well, I'm gonna cut up 2 actually. So the way you actually cut an onion, sorry, I was gonna do this. I think I may just let that hang for a sec. All right, you don't wanna burn the garlic or get it too caramelized. This dish doesn't, it's better if it's not as cooked. Okay, so I'm cutting the ends off of each of the onions. I'm just gonna cut it in half. And then, got my little, you know, you just peel that top layer off. So much easier that way. Then you can dice it any way you want, or you can slice it. And I'm just gonna go with like a thumbnail, you know, kind of thumb-sized chop. So, and the proper way to cut an onion is to do like a sunray pattern through the onion, and then you take it and cut it, you know, and you can do, you know, the more that you do, obviously, the smaller the, you know, the pieces of onion are. But like I said, I'm gonna do a thumbnail chop. So, okay, I'm gonna turn it. Best way to do, you know, you use this, you know, as your leverage. This is a just pretty little decent chef knife. It's not my good one. I actually have my good one sharpened. But this is just basic plain Jane. You want to have a nice weight to it, you know. Usually most of the Asian knives tend to be a little, they're a little lighter. But these, this is a, you know, it's a Cuisinart, but it's got a pretty good stainless on there. You see where it goes all the way through, and the rivets. That's pretty much the mark quality. That means it's probably a good product. So anyway, so I'm just gonna slice through, and I'm gonna keep my hands, my little fingers tucked away. So, and I'm gonna go through again and just do like that sunray pattern. It's a little messy. And then, well, I do this a lot faster when I'm not being watched. If I only had a dime for every onion that I've cut in my lifetime. So anyway, so the recipe calls for 2 onions, but I'm gonna do, or 1 onion, excuse me, and I'm gonna do 2. Stay in there. Okay, turn it, and then, you know, I move my hands around a lot. When I first, I think you all know, I mentioned I broke my neck a few years ago, 5 years ago, and I was out for a long time. And finally, when I got rid of the cane, I decided I have to go back to work, and so I just took like a basic job at a restaurant, local restaurant. I was in Carlsbad, and then I also I got a second job because I was really bored. I mean, I'm somebody that's been going, you know, Mach 45 my whole life, and so I needed to get out and do something. So I thought, wow, I'm gonna go work in a restaurant. Crazy. I mean, I've had my own, but I'm a little, you know, I had basically a dinner club, and it was just a couple nights a month. So it wasn't like an ongoing, you know, it wasn't the crazy like most restaurants tend to be. So, I mean, I don't know how anybody does that, but I worked there for a little bit. It was kind of funny. You know, here I am. I know more than the guy that's trying to explain to me how I'm supposed to do this or that, but I'm just like, okay, you know. Little did he know I've been doing this since before he was born, but that's okay. But it was quite an interesting experience. But you know, the chef, he was classically trained. He's like, you have to put your hands, you know, your hands just so, and he kind of got mad at me. You know, but I do have some, which I usually do, but I do have some issues with my hands sometimes. So it's easier sometimes for me to hold on to something a little differently. So, but the rule of thumb is, there's your whatever, got your knife blade here, and you want to hold it down with your fingertips. That way, when the knife is going, you're a little more safe. So, not to say I haven't gone and had stitches before. All right, so, oh, here we go. All right, I think I like this better here. So, all right, so I've got my garlic, and these are pretty big onions. I'm gonna put those in there too. I'm gonna let these go for a little while, and in the recipe, it actually calls for some white wine in there, and I'm gonna forgo the white wine today, just because I'm not supposed to have it, and the alcohol part doesn't matter because that cooks out anyway. But literally, I'm not supposed to have grapes, so I decided I was just going to take the white wine out of the equation. And really all it does, wine, when I add it to food, it's because it adds just a little more depth of flavor. But I have made this before without the wine, and I didn't really notice that much of a difference. It was, you know, it was really good. Sometimes you might want to put that in just kind of the last minute, let the alcohol cook out, and then, you know, if you want to have the little bit of a flavor of the alcohol. So better to do it kind of at the end. Just allow the alcohol to, you know, cook out a little bit, and then, you know, go for it. So anyway, in the meantime, I'm gonna let, I think a lot of onions in this dish, but they cook down pretty tiny. So while we're letting that do its thing, just stir that around, let the olive oil coat it a little bit. And, you know, this is a really nice stove with, I think it's 30,000 BTUs. It's really nice gas stove. Some of you aren't as lucky. I've been in places before, apartments in college and such, where you have this electric stove. So it's really nice to have a gas. It's just so much easier to, especially if you want to get like a little caramelization or a little char on something. You have to have that super high heat, you know, for something to go right away. So anyway, I'm gonna cut up two more of these tomatoes. These big old heirlooms. They are just delicious. They're in all colors too. They're yellow. I really like the flavor of the brown ones, and they call them Pommodoro, and you can get those too by themselves. This happens to be a variety, but I'm gonna actually see, this area here in the tomato, I always kind of cut that out because it's kind of tough, and it just wouldn't be nice to bite down into that in the sauce. But I'm gonna get rid of those. I'm gonna cut this one. Do the same thing. Okay. Tomatoes are part of the nightshade family. They're actually a fruit. And in some realms, and the old school Italians would also, and I'm just doing this and leaving the skins on for now, just so I can get this done in, you know, in a reasonable amount of time. Oh, by the way, I put a spaghetti squash in. I've got a spaghetti squash that's halved. I'll pull it out and show you in a little bit, but we're going to use that as the pasta. So totally going gluten-free. These tomatoes, I'm going to finish chopping them up. Sometimes it's easier if you turn them upside down and cut the knife through the skin. Oh, I can smell the garlic now. Can you smell it? Okay. So I hate those cooking shows where they're like, that's so good. Yeah, it's a little corny, but I'm just gonna put out the disclaimer that you're just gonna have to trust me. This is one of my old standards, and this is a great recipe for losing weight. It's full of nutrients, full of just, you know, just really good energy, good food, good food. Especially when you put the fresh herbs in there too. So, and I'm just doing, like, if you see, this is kind of like a little medium chop on the tomatoes. This knife could probably use a little bit of a sharpening, but it'll work for me today. Okay, so I'm just gonna, kind of cool, I don't know if you noticed, but you know, my countertop is like right here and here. And I like to kind of put my board on the corner there, so it's really easy to get the bowl in there. And when you need to transfer something that's juicy, like the tomatoes. Okay, so I'm gonna rinse this. Okay. Give this a stir. Okay, so a lot of times in a recipe it's going to say cook until translucent, and that just means when they're the youngins start getting a little more see-through. That just means that they're cooked through and they're getting there, good to go. So next, got my tomatoes ready to go. This recipe's like super easy. Okay, got some Italian parsley and. This over here, and I just normally I try and get, you know, this is the beginning of the bunch. It rode over here in the car from the store and it was in the sun, so it wilted a little tiny bit, but that's okay, we're gonna make it work. But I'm gonna just get like a nice handful here at the top and just kind of crunch it down, and then voila. Okay, so I've got a nice little pile of parsley here. That's just Italian parsley, it's flat leaf. Difference between flat leaf and curly, not only the texture, but it's got a little, this has a little more of a, I want to say almost like a lemony flavor to it. Just a different flavor altogether. I don't know, the curly leaf parsley tastes more like weeds to me. This is kind of where I go. I'll buy this 90 times out of 100. Okay, so I'm gonna add a little bit in here. Ooh, do a little stir. Okay. Okay. And just letting this, I'm not letting these onions, I'm not letting them brown, as you can see. I'm just kind of letting them do their thing. I don't have super high heat on, it's about medium high. And everybody has their little thing. In the meantime, got the tomatoes, waiting for that. I think I may just, I like mine a little glistening. Plus olive oil is really good for you and it's totally on my regimen. So I'm adding a little bit more in there to get a little more flavor. I mean, some of these olive oils that are infused with different flavors in them, really good. You know, when you're out, you like at this little show and they have, you know, all the food section, you know, and the swap meet or whatever, and somebody has all these gourmet blah 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 blah. You know, really, some of those. I was just in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and amazing, you know, vanilla balsamic vinegar. I mean, just really cool stuff. I mean, that's kind of my thing. I love that. So I've got a ton of basil here. I don't need all of this, but I'm gonna need a good handful. And so normally what I do is I just take some of these stems, or maybe you have a plant, and I pick the leaves off, and I kind of try and find the biggest ones, maybe put them on the bottom. This one's a little brown. Yeah, this, oh, here's a tip. By the way, when I was in Trader Joe's, there were, each one of these packets of basil kind of had a little weird, when they start going, they start getting dark like that. I hope you can see that. And, you know, I was like, you know, the chef in me, that's the perfectionist. Okay, so these are just about ready. They're pretty translucent. They're starting to brown up a little bit, and I don't want that to happen. I'm gonna put the tomatoes in here. And when I cut those tomatoes, I allowed the juice to go with it. Oh, I didn't explain the nightshades. I'll get into that. Anyway, I'm gonna stir this real quick. And I'm gonna bring this down to more of a simmer. Oops. There we go. Okay, I'm gonna let that simmer up. And I'm gonna take a lid. Take that one. There we go. Now, if your tomatoes are super juicy, you may not need a lid. This is all gonna be, you know, you're gonna have to wing it and figure out what you like. I'm gonna let this, because these tomatoes will produce a lot of liquid. For right now, I'm just letting it fly. Oh, one of the things that I have in there with the recipe is, I use this organic chicken stock. It's a paste, and you know, I use it like a seasoning. Can't go wrong. This is a pretty good product. Nothing really bad in it. There's no MSG. Oh my gosh, MSG. It is in everything. You know, bouillon, broth, blah, blah, blah. You have to really be careful. And the MSG, like I said before, I don't know if you watched that episode, but MSG is an excitotoxin, kills your brain cells. You don't really need it. It's actually one of those things that was discovered in Japan by this scientist, and he named it unami, and that means beautiful flavor. But really what it means is, it's hitting all the wickets in your brains, in your receptor cells, and it's telling your brain that whatever this is, it tastes good. So it's kind of like, it's like a brain fake out. So, but it also does, if you have too much of it, it kills your brain cells. So not good for you. Anyway, the tomatoes, they are called nightshades, and they're part of the family of vegetables. This one's a fruit that the seeds and the skins actually have like protective things that aren't really good for us humans to eat. So a lot of the old school paisans in Italy, you always see them, they always peel the skins off the tomatoes, probably because it's a little annoying if they're thick too when you're eating it. You know, these heirlooms, they're not so bad. But a lot of times they take the seeds and they know. It's just like I was talking about before, you know, old school cultures, they've got it going on and they got that figured out, that those are actually parts of the plants that they're bad for you. In fact, there's a great book out, Dr. Stephen Gundry. Look him up, and he talks a lot about that with the lectins that are in specific vegetables. If you have an autoimmune issue, I read his book, he's fabulous. Like, he goes and tests his own blood. It was kind of cool. He was like, oh yeah, I have these markers, and you know, my blood was really good, and then I went on vacation. When I came back, I took my blood again and did, because he can do his own tests. And he does, apparently, because he's kind of uses himself as a guinea pig to figure things out. But he really, like I was saying, he went on vacation, came back, and then found out that if he had that test at the doctor probably said, oh, you might have, you know, a tendency towards autoimmune, you know, this problem or that problem. Because it's science, but nothing is exact with all the tests that you do. So that's why I always come back and say, you know, be aware and of yourself and your body. I never even understood that concept, and now I am. And I'm now noticing, because I'm trying to be, you know, cognizant of it. I'm noticing that certain things, like the ginger the other day, when I didn't realize it was in the tea and it was in there. You know, I had the ginger, and it was causing me a reaction in my sinuses, which I had never noticed before, and but now I was looking for it. So just listen to your body. That's like, where's my little sign? It's common sense, common sense. I don't have it, it's over there. But anyway, okay, so we're letting that stew up, kind of on low. It's getting a nice little liquid in there. And I'm gathering up the rest of my basil leaves. I'm gonna make some pesto with the rest of this. Yeah, I make pesto with macadamia nuts. Yummy. Most people make it with pine nuts, Parmesan. I'll have to use the fakey Jake Parmesan. It's not too bad though. It's just kind of neat when you go in. Like I said, I explained the other day that I couldn't have hummus. That's because hummus is chickpeas, you know, or garbanzo beans mixed with tahini, which is ground sesame seeds. I can't have the sesame seeds. So I made some hummus with cashews and pecans. So I have a Vitamix, and I use cashew butter, but real pecans. And you gotta mess with it a little bit. I add a little oil in there, and then the garbanzos, a little bit of the juice from the garbanzos, lemon juice, salt, pepper, garlic. The pepper I'm using is white pepper because I'm allergic to the black. But I just sit there and go back and forth. Taste it. What does it need? After a while, you get a little better at that, and it's it's your intuition, So anyway, all right. So we have the basil. I'm gonna pluck off a few more of these leaves. This is actually really nice basil. Oh, so my tip was it was dying in there in the basil. I went, hey buddy. Because there was a produce guy there. If not, I find them. And this is a really good tip, because why should you pay for something that's really not, it's languishing, the quality is just not there. So I just make it a point, and I just know for my business for years, I just went to Larry the produce guy at one of the grocery stores in town, and his wife was a friend of mine, and he would just order me extra cases of what he needed to put out at the grocery store, and I'd get them super cheap and not have to have a purveyor come and have minimums, and so it was a pretty good deal. But I learned from him, hey, if something's not okay, then just call me, market half price. And so this guy, he said, well, our policy is I can't do that at Trader Joe's. Okay, this is stewing up pretty good. I can hear it bubbling in the background. I don't want it to be too squishy, too much juice. So I'm gonna lower. Not used to this stove, so it's plus my neurological thing. When I think I should go this way, I go that way. So even with the knobs kind of messes me up a little bit. So anyway, so today I got the basil and I said to this guy, hey, this basil, and he says, oh, we can't give you half price, but we're just gonna throw it out. I'm like, no, just, you know, give me one for half price. He goes, I can't do that. So I said, but I could mix and match, right? And he goes, yeah, it's gonna go in the trash. So I have this monster pile. There's probably like a double batch in here, but it's destined for the trash can. And that would be a shame to waste all this beautiful basil that is looking good in here. So, and you can actually, like I said, you can I'll make pesto out of the rest of it. So, all right, so I've got a ton of basil in here. I mean, I've got, you know, it says handful. I got 2 handfuls. All right, so what we're gonna do, and this is like a super cool trick. Like I said, I have the larger leaves on the bottom, and I'm gonna roll them up, okay? Okay, everybody's having flashbacks from high school, haha. Okay, and if you don't get that, you're too young, or maybe you aren't, I don't know. And we're gonna make, this is called a chiffonade. So I'm gonna take my knife, and I'll turn it so you can see. And I'm just gonna take little tiny slices through the end. See how I just move my hand gently? I use my thumb. And I'm gonna do the second little pile. All right. And the same thing. It's kind of cool how you can see, you know. I used to do cool things as a garnish with that, you know, but there's all kinds of things you can do. So I'm gonna throw this in here. It's on low. And this is pretty much almost done. Just gonna let it stir around a little bit. And I'm gonna just put it on super low. Oop, here I go again. Just put it on super low. And I'll bring it over here. I don't think I had the fresh parsley in the recipe. I haven't even, I mean, I'll drop box it, but maybe I'll redo it a little bit. So anyway, this is it's a lovely sauce. And, oh, I gotta take the, take the squash out. Okay, so this is my spaghetti squash. I'm gonna lay it over here. I'm just gonna wanna melt So, super easy. I just set it on the cutting board, cut it in half. I threw it in a baking dish and put about, you know, 3/4 of an inch of water in there. Let me clean this up. And this is a little hot. I'm just gonna kind of move this over here. And the thing is with the spaghetti squash, okay, so I may have cooked it a little too much. I'm not sure. Like I said, I'm not used to this stove for me. Yeah, it might be a little squishy, but it'll still work. Okay, so I'm gonna scoop out that. And alright. Okay, so let's get rid of some of that. Ooh, there's a lot of water in there. And how you actually find the spaghetti-ness, I'm gonna use this towel. Usually I let it cool off a little bit, but for our purposes, because we're almost done with the video here, you know, you wanna pull it away off the side. A little bit more, a little bit more. See how they're coming away? You just pull it away from the sides of, you know, little bit at a time, so that you separate it, a little bit at a time. And you separate it from the walls. And then you get to that place, and let's see, let me get a bowl. Okay, and I'm just real quickly do the rest. Oops. I mean, I've been doing this for years, so kind of got my own little thing. But at first, when you haven't done it a lot, you know, you be a little more gentle. Woo! Boy, that sucker's hot. Anyway, I'll take the spoon and just kind of scoop out the last bits of it. If you don't pull it away real well, then you're gonna get chunks. So, anyway, there you go. Does the thing for spaghetti. Now, because I may have probably got myself a little carried away, I may just throw this in the refrigerator so it cools down a little bit so it doesn't, you know, keep cooking. Or I might just take a little bit of ice cube. You'll put a little crushed ice in there and some water, and then just put it in a strainer. And that'll cool it down. That's a good tip. Some people overcook their green beans like that too. Green beans is one of those things you want to do the same thing too. You know, stop the cooking process, because believe it or not, everything will continue to cook even though it's off the real super hot. So I guess for now, I'm just gonna leave it at that. I hope you guys learned a little bit of some cute little cool tips or what have you, some basics. And I'm gonna leave it at that. And I think maybe I'll do this once a week, and I think maybe I'll do curry next week. Once I got into this, I was like, wow, there's a lot going on here. So tomorrow I'm gonna go into, I believe, sugar. So enjoy, thank you so much, and thanks for checking out Empowered Meals. Oh, please, 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 please. Thank you for, you know, for participating. I really appreciate it. If you wouldn't mind, and everybody goes, yeah, yeah, yeah. Even my own brother, he's like, yeah, yeah. I'm like, please go to my YouTube and like and subscribe, please. It's the only way I'm gonna get anywhere. YouTube seems to be where it's at the more research I do. So thank you, and have a good one.